It was supposed to be just another royal dinner, chandeliers glowing, the press standing ready, and a lineup of polished, protocol-perfect smiles. But that night, something unexpected took the spotlight. It wasn't the food or the speeches. It wasn't even King Charles. It was a tiara, one that hadn't been seen in public for years. The lover's knot. And it wasn't Queen Camilla wearing it. When Princess Catherine walked into the Grand Hall at Buckingham Palace, the energy in the room shifted. You could feel it. Not because of the dress, though that was flawless. Not because of the hair or makeup, those are always on point. It was the moment people realized what was on her head. The very same tiara once worn by Diana, the people's princess. The symbolism hit hard. It was like a silent announcement had just been made. Camilla noticed it too. She had walked in moments earlier, all dressed up in tradition, wearing her own royal jewels and perfectly timed smile. But when she turned and saw Catherine across the room, her face froze for just a second. A second long enough for the cameras to catch, for the insiders to notice, for the whispers to begin. That tiara wasn't just sparkly, it wasn't just historic. It was loaded with meaning, and everyone in that room knew it. The lover's knot isn't the kind of thing you casually pull from a drawer. It was crafted back in 1914 for Queen Mary, passed down through generations, and became iconic thanks to Diana. She wore it during some of her most photographed moments. It was part of her image, symbol of her presence, her pressure, her pain, all wrapped up in pearls and diamonds. And now here it was again, not hidden in a vault, but alive on Catherine's head. Nobody said a word, but you didn't need dialogue. You could read the room like a script. Camilla kept her composure, but her steps slowed, her posture tightened. She wasn't expecting this, because in theory, in rank, that tiara could have been hers. Should have been even. When Queen Elizabeth passed away, royal tradition gave Camilla first pick of the jewelry collection. She had every right to claim the lover's knot. But that's not what happened. Somewhere in the shadows of palace decisions, it went to Catherine instead. And whether that choice was made by the queen herself or quietly agreed upon within the family, the impact was the same. Catherine didn't just wear a tiara, she wore a legacy. And that legacy didn't belong to her in the beginning. It belonged to Diana, a woman who was loved not because of her title, but because of her heart. Diana was flawed, real, emotional, and people connected with that. The lover's knot became part of her identity, even when the palace tried to shape her into something else. It weighed on her, both physically and emotionally, and yet she carried it like armor. So now imagine Camilla, after years of working her way into royal acceptance, watching someone else step into that spotlight effortlessly. The public never fully embraced Camilla, no matter how hard she tried. But Catherine? She walked into the royal family and was adored from the start. And now she was literally wearing Diana's crown. That kind of moment can't be undone. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was powerful. That one tiara did what no statement or title could. It reminded everyone who still lived in the hearts of the people. And in that quiet comparison, Catherine didn't have to say anything, because the tiara spoke for her. Camilla had always known the royal spotlight was tricky. One moment you're the center of attention, and the next it slips quietly into someone else's hands. Or in this case, onto someone else's head. She'd spent years walking a tightrope, trying to transform public perception, trying to prove that she deserved her place beside the king. And by all traditional standards, she had succeeded. Queen consort, grand events, the best jewels in the vault. But none of that could shield her from the emotional gut punch of seeing Catherine in that tiara. It wasn't about diamonds. It never really was. A lover's knot came with a weight that went beyond carats and goldsmiths. It was soaked in history, memories, and the unshakable image of Diana. That tiara was never neutral. It carried a ghost with it, and Camilla could feel it haunting the room that night. Every glance toward Catherine felt like a silent tribute to a woman who was never forgotten. People didn't need to say Diana's name out loud. They didn't have to. It was there, in the sparkle of the pearls, in the posture Catherine held, in the emotion that stirred in the eyes of those watching. Older guests remembered Diana's poise and quiet sadness. Younger ones had grown up on documentaries and tribute reels. And here it was again, like a time loop wrapped in silver and symbolism. Camilla felt it all at once. once. The years of effort of smiling through icy headlines and trying to rebuild an image suddenly felt distant, like no matter how far she'd come, she was still chasing a shadow that refused to fade. And that night, the shadow wasn't just present, it was shining. The irony cut deep. For all the criticism Camilla had faced early on, the name-calling, the media attacks, the public coldness she had endured, she stayed silent through most of it, never complaining, just pushing forward. When she finally became queen, many thought it was the moment she'd truly step out of Diana's shadow. But the shadow had simply moved from the past to the present, from memory to symbol, and now sat quietly on Catherine's head, polished and glowing. Inside the palace, people noticed. You can't fake the kind of reactions that happened that night. The glances lasted a second too long. The small talk around Catherine felt a little more rehearsed, a little more careful. Even staff members trained to show no emotion looked like they were treading new ground. The dynamic had shifted, not by protocol, but by presence. Camilla kept a smile on her face, but it was tight. Her eyes didn't dance the way they usually did. She still wore her own crown, the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, a beloved piece of royal history, had belonged to Queen Elizabeth herself, a symbol of stability and strength. But in that moment, it didn't shine the same way. It didn't mean the same thing, because legacy isn't about what you wear. It's about what people feel when they see you. And Catherine, she didn't try to outshine anyone. She didn't have to. The tiara had done the work for her. It reminded people of a time they still held close, and in doing so, it made her feel like the rightful continuation of something powerful. Camilla stood in the same room with the same title, but not the same energy, and for someone who had waited so long to feel like she truly belonged, the distance between where she stood and where Catherine stood never felt wider. Photos from the event hit the internet like wildfire. One image in particular, Catherine smiling softly under the weight of the lover's knot tiara, spread across social media within minutes. Headlines followed, some subtle, others not. Diana's spirit returns. Catherine channels the people's princess, a crown reclaimed. It didn't matter how carefully the royal family tried to control the narrative, the people had already decided what the moment meant. The reactions weren't just admiration, they were emotional. People felt something real. It was nostalgia mixed with hope. Seeing that tiara again, not hidden away in a display or on a dusty portrait, but out in the open, worn by someone so gracefully stepping into the future, stirred something collective. It reminded everyone of a time when the royal family felt more human, more vulnerable, more connected. Catherine never asked for that comparison, but she didn't have to. The tiara placed it on her head with or without permission. Behind palace walls, the impact rippled. Advisors and insiders understood the subtle power shift that had just taken place. Not in official status, that remained untouched, but in influence. In perception. In the quiet language the monarchy has always relied on, symbolism. The lover's knot wasn't just a family heirloom, it had spoken, and its message had landed. Camilla, for all her composure, felt the tremor. This wasn't the first time she felt like the outsider. The early years had been filled with side eyes and scrutiny, but she had survived it, outlasted the criticism, and climbed to a title many thought she'd never reach. She had earned her place, legally, structurally, even emotionally for some, but not all. And that gap between duty and devotion revealed itself most clearly when the jewels came out. When Catherine wore Diana's tiara, it wasn't just about who had what, it was about who meant what to the public. That night, the difference was undeniable. Camilla had the crown, Catherine had the hearts. For the royal family, it was a reminder that tradition alone can't dictate the future. People want connection. They want someone they can believe in. And Catherine had spent years quietly building that trust, never through spectacle, always through presence. She didn't push, she didn't perform. She just showed up, consistently with humility and strength. And when she finally wore that tiara, it felt right. Not by protocol, by feeling. Camilla still appeared at events, still wore impressive jewels, still played her part, But something had shifted. The light didn't follow her the same way, not because she wasn't trying, but because legacy isn't something you hold, it's something you become. The lovers not chose Catherine not just because she married into the family, but because she carried the kind of grace people wanted to follow. Diana had once done the same. And now, through that very same crown, the story had continued. Not replaced, not rewritten, continued. The monarchy runs on symbols, coats of arms, royal seals, jewels passed down for generations. But the ones that matter most aren't the ones locked in glass cases. They're the ones that make people feel something. And on that night, under the chandeliers and polished silver, one tiara did just that. It reminded everyone watching that royalty isn't always about who's next in line. Sometimes it's about who people believe in. And whether anyone inside the palace would say it out loud or not, everyone knew where that belief stood now.